Samantha from Samantha Tutorials here, and today I'm going to be showing you an updated version of this pendant I made around 4 years ago. So we're going to be creating the texture stamp that I used in this tutorial, and then we're going to be just taking the pendant and just elevating it and making it more sophisticated and just better finished off. So what you're going to need to begin with is some leftover polymer clay. I've got some here. A plain piece of printing paper, and just use that to burnish down your clay. And this clay is actually a little thick, and I would like to use less clay than necessary. And you might be wondering why I'm not putting this to the pasta machine. I actually rolled this out on my thickest setting and then stacked it twice, so it's about 4mm thick. So now just bring it down to about 3mm thick. Just because the thicker it is, the more clay you're going to end up using in your texture stamp. And if I don't have to use up too much, I won't do that. Okay. Then we'll burnish it down again. And this is just to get stuck to the stamp and also to even out the surface, because any imperfections that are on your surface will be taken up by your clay later on. Now this is about the size of the stamp that I'm going to need. Just take that, just press it in enough that I now know what I'm working with. And now I'm going to start by putting in some branches. Just getting caught on the tripod there. So these are the main branches. And I'm not making it thick yet. I will do that in a little while. I just want to map out whereabouts I want them to be. Okay, and I'm just using a skewer for this. And just about done with the main branches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring over some ball tools. And this is going to help me make this branch wider, and you can just smooth it off gently like so. First press it in like so, and I'm just going to do that up the main branches like so. And smooth that down. There we go. And then I'm just going to work at the base here to make it a little bit thicker, because it should get thinner as it goes up. Like so. I'm just going to show you this first one, and then I'll do the other ones, and then I'll cut back and show you how to do the rest. Okay, there we go. Then once you're somewhat happy with it, just take a larger ball tool and just smooth it off so you can add texture later on, and make some final adjustments if there are any. And these are going to be your main branches. And then what you're going to do from there is you're going to move down to a smaller ball tool. Let's see, this looks to be the next size down. Yep. Okay. And then just finish off the rest of these branches, and then we can add the smaller ones. And there we go. Then bring over your skewer again, and now we're just going to start adding our smaller branches in. And also finishing off the top of these branches, like so. Now we're going to go over it and we're just going to add in that texture because we want it to kind of look like it's got bark, right? So just go in with the skewer and just scrape along the surface like so. And this is just going to add some extra dimension to our texture. Okay, and then for one last thing, take a very thin needle tool of some sort and just go in and add some extra little branches. Like so. Okay, and there we go. Now just take a piece of printing paper and very gently go over it and burnish. And this will just flatten out some of the cracks. When I say gently, I really mean gently. Okay, then just go over it and clear up any areas that have been blocked off. Generally, the smaller ones are going to be the areas where they have the most trouble. So just go back and check all of those. Okay. Then we're going to bring over a tissue blade and I'm just going to chop well outside of the margin. Okay. Then lift it up and stretch, and all you're going to be doing here is you're just going to be opening up those paths, widening them a little bit, and just in general opening up any gaps. And then the final thing to do is just going to be to go through and just make sure that you've opened up all of those areas and that you're completely happy with the result. You can go back and scratch in a little bit more if you want to. It's completely up to you. Just make sure you didn't miss anything, because once it's in the oven you can't really go back and do anything about it. So I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just going to trim inside that margin. Now we've got a nice texture stamp, and I'm going to bake that for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and when we're done we can start creating our pendant. So let me just show you that. Okay, so it's out of the oven and here is how it should look. So I've also got a piece of black clay rolled out to about 2 millimeters thick. This is Primo, and we are going to texture it. So just grab some cornstarch. Actually no, don't use cornstarch because we're going to be putting mica powder on it and then it won't stick. Don't use cornstarch if you're going to be putting mica powder on. I'm going to actually spray this with water. Okay, quite heavily, and then I'm just going to rub that around to make sure that I get it in the cracks. I generally prefer using cornstarch just because it seems to prevent it sticking better, but if you're going to be using something such as mica powder, the cornstarch on the clay will prevent the mica powder from sticking. So now I'm going to lay that in, and I'm going to stand up. I'm going to start on one end. I'm just going to press down. And actually what you want to do is you want to just give this a light spray so that it's not going to stick to your fingers while you're pressing. And then you just press from one end to the other, like so. Okay, then we're going to lift that out, and you can see there hopefully the texture. So I'm going to pop that off to the side, and now we want to just dry our tile and this quickly. Okay, and there we go. So it's just about dry. So now what we want to do is we want to trim away our excess clay, and you're going to put that back wherever you keep your black. And I know it's difficult to see right now. I will highlight this all with mica powder so you can see what it looks like in just a moment. There we go. Okay, so now I've got a nice fluffy brush, which I'm going to be using. and I've also got a select bunch of mica powders, basically using rust, copper and gold for this. So I'm going to open those up away from the clay. I'm just going to pop them to the side here. There we go. Okay, now you want to make sure that your clay is completely dry before we do this next bit, because if it is not, the mica powder will clump. So what I typically will start with is the lighter colour. And I'll just brush that on. Like so. And I'll grab another one. And I'm going to blend that in. And now you want to be pressing very lightly with your brush. You don't want to be pressing too hard, because otherwise you'll flatten out your texture. And then hopefully you can see that starting to highlight it. And so I'll just create these patches of colour and just blend them together. And there's no right or wrong way of doing this, and you can do any colour of mica powder you want. I'm going with these reds because I think they're quite pretty and I want it to kind of look like autumn. But you could go with any colour you want, and you don't necessarily have to do it with copper to gold. You can pop a little bit of red there. It's really completely up to you how you want to lay these colours down. Just make sure to get rid of all of the black. Okay, and here it is with all the mica powder. Now what you want to do is you want to just use a wet wipe and some isopropyl alcohol to wipe away the surface mica powder. Generally 99% isopropyl works best, but anything up to 80, anything above 80% should work. Now you just gently want to brush over the surface, like so. I'm not pressing, I'm just brushing. This is why I like to use the isopropyl alcohol, because it means that it just takes the mica powder off. You don't have to rub or anything like that, so you won't end up distorting your texture. And now it's not going to be completely clean, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to give it a little bit of a sand later on, just to remove the rest of the mica powder, but this will get rid of most of it. So that you can see how that's highlighting the texture. And the areas where the mica powder got into the scratches, you can see that as well, which is really nice. So I'll continue doing that for the rest of the texture. Okay, so now before we move on to the next step, which would be to cut out a piece, just take this and lift it up so I can show you how it looks. Just get rid of the excess mica as well. And here we are, this is how it looks. You can see it's really quite pretty looking. So now I want to cut out a piece, and now don't worry about the backing, it's not going to look great at the moment, but we'll fix that later on. Right now what we want to do is we want to figure out whereabouts we want our cutter, and I'm thinking probably somewhere around here would be a nice spot. So now I'm going to take my circle cutter. I think this is a little bit on the large side. So I'm using my second largest circle cutter in my cutter set. I'm going to position this roughly in the middle, and then I'll move this around until I'm happy with it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Now press your circle in, and then press the dragon scale cutter in, and this is my largest dragon scale cutter. Okay, just going to give that a spin, lift it up, just press along these edges, make sure that I've got a nice clean cut, lift it up, move this out of the way. Get this out of the way too. And there we go, that's our piece. Now we're going to give it a sand later on, so it's going to look, the black's going to have a higher contrast later on. And also what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bezel here, but I first want to bake this. So now you want to very gently just go around the edges and begin to lift this up. Okay. Just smooth down those edges and then put it onto a piece of plain printing paper and bake that for about half an hour at Primrose recommended temperature. And then when that is done, we can do the bail on the back. Well, not bail, bezel on the back. Okay, now just before I forget, I actually want to put a pair of grommets in, and I want to do that before this goes in the oven, so I will do that now. So you just take, and this isn't necessary, you don't have to do it if you don't have any grommets, just pop in a hole using a circle cutter, and that will work just as well. But the grommets will look quite decorative later on. So you can see I have them on a piece of paper here, and I've just cut them in like so. And now you very gently want to lift them out. Okay. And now I have a little micro cutter here that's about the right size. Okay. And just pop that out. Same on the other side. Pop the grommets in. And we're going to have to glue these in later on, but at the moment we don't have to worry about that. I just think they look quite cute. Okay, then just use something like a craft knife, just press that in nicely, and there you can see how nice that looks. Okay, so now I'm going to pop that into the oven for half an hour, pretty much recommended temperature, and then we can move on to our bezel. Okay, and here it is out of the oven. So now you want to decide whether or not you want to sand the surface, and I do want to do that because it will just clean up the mica powder. So I'll start with a 600, and this is a polishing paper. And just be gentle when you're doing this. And just sand the surface with the 600, and then you want to go up to at least a 2000 grit. I'm going to be going up all the way to an 8000. So that I get a nice shiny finish on my branches. You can see there how much mica powder is coming off, and it will just clean it up considerably. Okay, and here is how it should look. So you can see that we got a little bit of the mica powder rubbed off on the base areas, but that's okay, I quite like that look, it gives it a kind of rustic effect. So now what we are going to do is we're going to apply our backing. Bring over a piece of printing paper, I'm going to work on that. And I've got a piece of clay here that was run out on my middle setting, which is about 1 millimeter thick. And I'm just going to take another piece now, and I'm going to burnish this thoroughly. And this is just going to give us a nice smooth backing. There we go. Then you're going to need a little bit of liquid clay on the back here so that we can stick this over. So I'm going to be using Kato translucent liquid clay. I'm just dropping a little bit on there. Then rub that over the surface. Get a nice even coat. And just before we put it on our base, I do want to pop these out. So we should be able to very easily do that. There we go. And we'll put those in later on. Then place that on and press thoroughly to make sure that it sticks. Okay, then I'm just going to take circle cutters and I'm just going to prepare those because I'm going to need to use them in a little while. First, what I want to do is I want to just trim this out. Like so. And then just remove that. Pop that back to black. Okay, and then I'm just going to check the edges. Lift that up. And I'm just going to press these edges over so that we don't have a seam. And I will smooth them over in a little while. All we're doing is just pinching and smoothing, like so. And that's going to give a slightly beveled finish. You'll just do that the whole way around. I'm almost done here. And I'll show you how to quickly clean that up. Just run your finger over the surface and just smooth, and that should clean it up for you. And at the same time, try not to touch the actual backing because that's nice and clean with our paper. And if we can keep that as smooth as possible with no fingerprints, that's the best way to go. And almost done. And there we go. Okay, then just make sure that you're happy with that. Then I'm just going to grab another piece of black and just quickly scrape that up. I'm just going to press that down onto my paper and we're going to cut out these sections here. Using the same cutter as before, it should fit. Okay. And you're going to see that it's created a distortion, so you just quickly clean that distortion up, smooth again. Repeat with the other one. Smooth over again. And then there's one last little thing I'd just like to go in here and just quickly. Just needed to trim it off with my craft knife there. And then smooth over. And there we go. So now I'm going to just grab the two grommets that we had earlier, and what I want to do actually is I want to use some liquid clay to stick them in. So I'm just going to pour a little bit of translucent liquid clay off to the side here, and just grab a little bit of that and just dab that around the outside area here. Okay, also dab on the inside. Just got a hair there that I need to get rid of. Then pop your grommet in. Squish it down. And then again, grab a little bit more liquid clay, and I want you to paint it over the rim and onto just the outskirt of the polymer clay. Now you don't want to add too much because we don't want to paint the entire thing with liquid clay, but what we want to do is we essentially want to just encase this in liquid clay, which is going to bond to the surrounding clay and therefore keep our grommet stuck in there. Now it's going to be a bit cloudy at the moment, but once it bakes it will clear up and you'll find that your grommet will stuck on, and then you don't need to use glue or anything complicated like that could react with your clay or surface effects. And then you'll repeat with the other one. Then you'll pop this in for a full hour at pretty much recommended temperature because it's going to be our final bake. And then we are going to apply our little bits and pieces inside and add some resin and just in general finish off the piece. And just also want to make a quick note, if your clay is thick enough you can actually put grommets onto the back as well, like I am doing right now, and you would cover those with liquid clay as well just to seal them in. So if you have enough space and you can, pop those in too. And just remember to clean up inside. And there we go. And you'll have grommets on both sides, which will look quite cute. Okay, so here it is after baking. And I've actually decided that I would like liquid clay to be on the outside. I just think it will probably give it a nice shine and will just be a nice addition. Instead of leaving it somewhat matte. So I'm just going to squirt some liquid clay off to the side here. You don't want to be pouring it onto the surface. I'm just going to be taking my liquid clay dedicated brush. I'm just going to brush this lightly over the surface. And now it's going to be best if you can use a heat gun to cure this, but you should be able to cure it with the oven. Just keep in mind that it's not going to be very shiny if you put it in the oven, so if you don't have a heat gun, it's probably not worth it to do it with liquid clay. Using a UV resin would probably be a better choice. But again, by putting another coat of liquid clay, you're going to be sealing in those grommets. And you're also going to be sealing that mica powder, so you do need to varnish this. I was going to use a matte varnish, but I decided against it. So just continue coating like I am. Make sure that you don't have any air bubbles, things like that. And I'll show you when I'm done. Okay, now we're going to use our heat gun on the hottest setting. I'm using an Ozito heat gun, and we are going to cure this. And there we go, that should do it. So let me just direct that around. Now hopefully you can see how beautiful and shiny that is. So now you want to let that cool, and then I'm going to also apply the exact same coat of liquid clay to the back of my piece, and then we can move on to putting our pieces in here and filling it with resin. Okay, so now that that's all done, so you can see here, it's all nice and shiny, and it will have sealed those grommets in perfectly. So now we are going to work on our little bit over here. So the first step is going to be to pop some UV resin of your choice. I'm using Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss into our little bezel here. Just want to start out with a little bit. just want to drag that around, touch all the edges. And I'm working on a piece of paper because it means that I can move this around easily, and because it's in a bezel we don't have to worry about it spilling over the edges or anything like that. There we go. Then I'm going to be working with this. I've got some little cogs here and some little other bits and pieces. So find the pieces that you would like to work with. There's one, another nice large cog here. Let's see, I've got some silver ones in here. And just in general, just pick out some bits and pieces that you like the look of. And you can add in whatever you want, or however little you want into here. Okay. I'm just going to start out with a little bit like that. Space them out. And then I am going to cure that in the UV light for probably about a minute, just to set the UV resin, and then I will add in some more bits and pieces. Okay, so I've set that. So now I've brought over some little copper druzy flakes, and actually before we put that in we want to just insert a little bit more. And I probably didn't leave this long enough in the UV light because it just moved. Not sure if you saw that or not, but there you can see that they're moving around. That's fine. Not a huge issue. Just going to separate that out, and I'm going to just drop in few flakes, and I'll move these around. And then I have some gold ones here as well. And remember, at any point you can remove this stuff. It's only when you set a layer that you can't remove it. And that should be enough. Just move those around so we can still see our little cogs. Okay, and then I'm going to put that into the UV light again. Okay, so it's been in the machine for about 5 minutes, and I've checked, and it's still a little squishy, but the top layer is sealed. So now we're going to just add a tiny bit more resin again. Just going to pull that up to the edges, and just be careful not to get it on your surrounding area, the clay piece. Okay, now at this point we need to be putting in shallow elements. The druzy was fairly thick, but we'll be putting on another layer after this one, and that should cover it up. But right now we're going to be only using delicate small elements, because if we don't, we won't be able to cover up the bumps they leave with the next and final layer. Just grabbing some pieces that I like, and I will move them about to where I would like them to be in just a moment. Just going to drop them in first. Okay, and try to get those covered with resin. Like so. Just trying to get this one little bit. There we go. Okay, and that looks pretty good. So now that's going to go back in the UV light for about 5 minutes again, and then when that is done we're going to be putting in our final layer. Okay, so you can see I added another cog, so now we'll just check if that's ready. Yep. And now we're going to pour our final layer, and then this needs to sit in the UV light for about 15 minutes just to cure fully. In our final layer. And now I do want this to have a dome. Now if you are not using Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss, I would not go for a dome if I were you. Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss allows for a dome. The resin doesn't spread very easily, which is very nice. It creates beautiful domes. But if you're using another resin, just go for a flat finish, because otherwise you're going to spill over into the rest of the pendant. Let's see, probably just put a little bit more on there. I'm not even going to go for a very high dome. Probably leave it about that. So it's nice and full, don't want to risk it anymore. So I'll pop that in for about 15 minutes and then we can get on to actually stringing our pendant. Okay. Just about to bring it out of the UV light, and here we go. You can see how that looks, and this was one of the reasons why I wanted to coat it in liquid clay, is because now you can't actually tell whether or not the resin did spill over. There's one or two spots that if I look very carefully I can see that the resin spilled over just a touch, but in general not too much. But in general it just has a really nice shiny kind of glassy look to it. So next step is going to take some cotton cord, and I'm using black, and cut 2 equal lengths. We're going to string that through the grommet, and I have a spacer here. String that on like so. Do the same on the other side as well. Okay. Now I'm just going to keep it on the piece of paper because the liquid clay on the back is a little sticky when working with the tile. I'm just going to take this, and I've got a little bit of excess there, so I'm just going to quickly snip that clear. Should have probably brought sharper scissors. Let me just try this pen here. There we go. Okay, so now I just want to make sure they line up. Yep. And I've got a little cord end here. Pair of pliers. Squish that flat. Squish the other side flat. Repeat on the other side. Okay. Then just grab some jump rings, and you're just going to need 2, and your clasp of choice. And you're just going to open up the jump ring, pop it onto the end of the cord there, and close. And it'll be very quick and easy to repeat on the other side. And that is basically how I have chosen to finish off this pendant. It's a very simple way of stringing, but it highlights the pendant. So let me bring that over. And these little charms really add a nice little touch. You could use copper as well, but I chose to use gold in today's tutorial. So that is basically it for this tutorial. Keep in mind that I used colours that are kind of autumny, but if you want to do some in blues, greens, purples, any colours you want, this in green would actually look quite nice because of the tree stem. It would look quite nice. Also bear in mind you can use any texture stamp you want. I really like creating my own textures because then it creates a unique piece, but if you don't want to do that and you just want to use a generic texture, that will work as well. Though personally I find that it has a lot more character when you create your own textures, and also that texture will then be unique to you, so that it gives your pieces a unique factor, which is very helpful. So anyway, that's basically it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.